Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Scared But Not Damaged podcast. I am so excited to be here today. Yay! Today is episode 3. And what are we going to be talking about? Yes, today I will be discussing the impact of domestic abuse on its victim. When thinking about the consequences of domestic abuse, it is important to consider the impact of emotional, mental, physical, social, and financial effect on the survivor and her family and children, and also the wider society. Findings from a survey revealed that 46.2% of women in refugee had spent 2 to 10 years in abusive relationship, with 17% of women enduring a violent relationship for more than 10 years. That shows you abuse doesn't happen just in one day. So people just kind of endure and they keep quiet. So it's a kind of secretive pain. Yes. A data taken by Women's Aid United Kingdom showed that 13% of service users had experienced abuse for 20 years or more. Hmm, that is shocking. And that's one topic that wasn't talked about over the years. In 2017, Women's Aid carried out a research. They supported 1,217 female survivors by 25 domestic abuse services. They had 25 domestic abuse services between April 1st, 2016, a period of 1 year, to 31st of March 2017. So you can imagine in a period of 1 year, 25 domestic abuse services were being used by 1,217. And that is actually a fraction of the people that spoke out. A lot of people don't speak out. So that figure doesn't show the number of people that are going through abuse. It only showed the few ones that got help. So there are factors that contribute to domestic abuse. And I'd just like to touch on some of them. Inequality. For example, poverty. Poverty. Research shows that women in poverty are particularly likely to experience the most extensive violence and abuse in their lives. Because when you're not working, you're poor and things are not going well, you're more likely to depend on your partner. And if that partner is abusive, it's abuse is more prevalent in such situations. Number two, another factor that contributes to domestic abuse is black and minority ethnic women. A survey of women using specialist black, minority ethnic, and refugee domestic abuse services found 96% reported experiencing psychological, emotional, verbal abuse, while 72% experienced physical violence, and 30% had experienced attempted and threats or threats of murder that's been killed by their perpetrators, by the person inflicting abuse on them. Some black and minority ethnic refugee women were at higher risk of repeated victimization and face extra barriers to reporting abuse and seeking help. So some people are trapped in a relationship by violent perpetrators for a long time. 26% of women were found to be in a relationship for 20 years, abusive relationship. I know you don't understand. You ask yourself why. But in some other episode, we'll be able to say why people don't leave. I'll talk about that topic. 18% probably stay in a relationship about 5 years in an abusive relationship. The survivors, especially the black and minority ethnic women, survivors may not report abuse to the police for a number of reasons. They have concerns about the impact of stigma, being judged by family members, friends, by the wider family, the community, the church, whatever. Then some of them have language difficulties and feeling of distrust. Some people just don't trust the authorities. They're afraid, so they can't speak out. Another factor again is pregnancy. Research has shown that 40 to 60% of women experiencing domestic violence are abused while pregnant. Yeah. Then disability is another factor. Women with a long-term illness or disability are more likely to be victims of any domestic abuse, more than those without a long-term illness or disability. I'd like to bring this to your notice, something called femicide. The Femicide Census is a database containing information on women killed by men in England, Wales since 2009. And about 139 women were killed by men in England, Wales, and Northern Ireland in 2017. So, is this topic worth talking about? Is this topic worth creating awareness for women or for victims of abuse, both men and women that are living in fear? So, hey guys, we've got to help these women. We've got to rise up and help them. On the outside, you think it's subtle, oh, maybe just a slap is okay. But they never tell the whole story. They can't tell their stories. And even when they say it, people don't understand because they cannot sit down and articulate the pain and express it. So most times words cannot express what they're going through. So guys, we need to open our eyes. We need to look out for signs. And if you know someone that's confided in you, speak out. Let them report to the police. Yes, and they can find help. They can find help because you don't want them to be another statistics where you find them as the numbers increase as women that have been killed by men because they were in an abusive relationship. Let's stop domestic violence now. It has to stop. It's like an epidemic right now. It's increasing. But a lot of people don't talk about it because, oh, I don't want to report my husband. Oh, my partner, we've been in this relationship for so long. Where would I find someone else? Because they are afraid. So encourage them. Be a friend to a victim and save a life. Save lives and save the future leaders. Children are greatly impacted by domestic violence. I'll be touching on that later on. So I'll quickly let you know something. I'll just point out coercive control behavior is at the heart of domestic abuse and has been a specific criminal offense since the end of 2015. So it's something in England, it's something that is recognized as a crime. But because we are not informed, you feel my husband slapped me, my boyfriend's like, it's okay. It's not okay. Because the trauma and abuse victims go through, you need to meet them and discuss with them. If they tell you their story, then you know abuse is not just what it is. It's not just one slap. Or, oh, he didn't beat you now. No, you were not hit. But he doesn't touch you. It's okay, yeah, there are different types of abuse. and there are different modes of being interpreted. Some of them are subtle, but it's only the abuse, it's only the victim that knows the impact of what they are going through and what they carry and the pain and trauma. So, yeah, I'll be going into the effects of domestic violence on its victim. What are the common physical effects of domestic violence? I guess a lot of us know some and a lot we do not know. So here we go. Bruises. Bruises around, on or around the eyes. That's for physical abuse now. Red or purple marks on the neck. Sprained or broken wrist. Chronic fatigue. The people are constantly tired. They sleep at night, but they wake up tired. That's because they're constantly not sleeping. It's like they never slept. Chronic fatigue. They are always tired, exhausted, because there are battles they are fighting physically, seen and unseen, battles that are psychological. That's because of the victim. They are victims of abuse. Shortness of breath. Some people experience muscle tension, involuntary shaking. They are constantly in fear. Changes in eating and sleeping patterns. Sexual dysfunction, menstrual cycle of fertility issues in women. So you can see it's a huge thing, and we've got to stop domestic violence. The second mental effect, the another common ment, another that's the common mental effect of domestic violence. One is the post-traumatic stress disorder, including flashbacks. That's even when they leave that abusive situation, they always seem to have nightmares, severe anxiety, uncontrollable thoughts, even when they leave that place. So you can see depression include prolonged sadness. I experienced depression, I experienced prolonged sadness. I was always sad. I just could not get my joy back. And I was such a happy person, but my joy left me for so long. Anxiety, low self esteem, and questioning self worth. Sense of self. You probably lose your self worth, self esteem, and identity while you're in an abusive relation. You constantly question yourself. Are you? Are you not? Because of what you keep hearing. You hear negative words, you're fat, you're too thin, you're ugly, even when the person is pretty. But that's the damaging effect of what the perpetrator does to his victim. Suicidal thoughts or attempts. If you are someone, if you or someone you know is feeling suicidal, please reach out to me. Reach out to people so we can send you help and support. Alcohol and drug is use is another common effect of mental if another common mental effects of domestic violence. I'll be looking at the emotional and spiritual effects of the common emotional and spiritual effects of domestic abuse. Hopelessness. Yes. When you're in an abusive relationship, you don't know what hope is. You're merely existing, you are not living a life. You're like you're there, but you're not there. You don't know when, because the cycle of abuse, you're not sure when that cycle will end or when you can break free. So it's a warless prison. So there's no hope. Just like they give you life sentence, there's no hope because you're meant to die there. So that's what I liken that to domestic violence. That's what it's like. Feeling unworthy, you're constantly not worthy, feeling worthy of yourself. You feel low, you feel unworthy, apprehensive and discouraged about the future. You don't even look that you can't look far into the future because the future seems to look bleak. You can't even see light at the end of any tunnel because the tunnels seem to be endless. That's what it's like in an abusive, being a victim of abuse. Inability to trust, you can hardly even trust people because you don't know who's coming to help and who's not coming to help. But I will still say to you, please trust. Still trust, give, and because in life you see, if you don't trust, you cannot get. You need to open up a bit. At least people that you've trusted in the past can work with people that have a track record of trust and integrity. Another effect is questioning and doubting spiritual faith. Sometimes you begin to question yourself, whatever belief system you're operating in, if you believe in God, whatsoever the universe, you start questioning your existence. If life was worth living, why are you here? Those are kind of questions they ask. I mean, you think there's no point living. Another one is unmotivated. You don't feel any motivation. You wake up, life is bleak. You go to bed, it's the same. You're like in a vicious circle. When will this bleakness end? That's a question on the mind of victims. Victims of domestic abuse are never present in time. You are with them, they are with you, but they are not with you. They're constantly in another world. They're in a bubble of pain and trauma. They are not in the real world, but they're there with you, but they're not there. Another common effect again is common effects on children who witness domestic violence. A lot of people do not know the impact it has on children. So it's this topic. It's a topic on its own, which I'll be discussing some other time in one of my shows. But today, I'll just touch on some few points. Whether children witness or experience domestic abuse or violence, it does affect their total development. Domestic abuse does not only affect the intimate partners, children are also at risk for emotional behavioral problems. And common effects are things they suffer most is anxiety. Constantly, they suffer from depression. Most of them have academic problems in school and they live in constant fear. These children live in this fight or flight mode. They are constantly under pressure. They are producing cortisol, this hormone that is so toxic in the system. These children are producing because they are constantly living in fear because they don't know when that outburst will break out. They don't know when their dad, the abuser would do things or throw things or deal with them. So they're constantly not in a stable environment, if an environment that is volatile. Please, guys, we have to stop domestic violence. Let's increase the awareness. Let people know. No, it is not right. It is criminal. You do not take someone's human rights from them. So I am an advocate for domestic violence. Anti-domestic violence has to stop because the effect and the impact on its victim, it's undescribable, it's unmeasurable. You cannot phantom it because, for one, some people lose their speech. For me, I was unable to speak grammatically correct for 3 years because I was isolated from people. I couldn't make words. I was forced to be quiet. I just could not talk to friends and family because I was such in a place that was secluded. Yes. So some people lose the ability to speak. I could not make tenses for 3 years. But, thank God, coming out of abuse, I was well spoken. My English used to be impeccable, but I'm getting all this back as I recover. So, guys, somebody else might not be able to see the next day. You might be the saving grace. You might be that savior. You might be just that person that can help them step out from an abusive relationship. You might be that one that might stop the abuse in their life. You might be their savior today. So why don't you go out and be that hero? Yes, be that hero. I'll stop here today. Thank you so much for listening. I hope there were insights that things that I've said today inspired you and informed you, that will make you go and seek to be a hero for a domestic violence victim. And yeah, if you're a victim, you're listening to me. Hey, it's time to get up, sister. Oh, it's time to get up, brother. No, you don't have to live like that anymore. Stand up tall. Stand up tall. Yes, it might be weak and might be difficult, but I know that. But just muscle on your last strength. Stand up and speak out from the words. We can't speak and write it out. I know how difficult it is. I was in that place before. You want to speak and your voice disappear. You want to talk, the voice becomes voiceless. I've been there before. But you need to do it. You need to speak to a trusted friend and tell them to help you speak to someone, because I know what it is to lose self-confidence. So you need supported friend that can talk on your behalf, because I have been there. So thank you so much for today. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you again next week. Bye bye.